Someone you know is going to die. Maybe not today, maybe not soon. But at some point you will stand beside a body, or an empty chair, or a box being lowered into the ground, and you will feel something so enormous that no word in any language has ever fully captured it. And you will wonder, in some quiet part of yourself, what you are supposed to do now. Here is what nobody tells you. You already know. Your body already knows. Because humans have been doing this for a very, very long time. And what your ancestors did when someone died is not what you were taught. It is stranger, more tender, and more alive than anything a modern funeral could ever replicate. The real story of how ancient humans face death will change the way you see your own grief. Start with a number. 300,000 years. That is the minimum age of the oldest known intentional burial site ever discovered. In a cave system in South Africa called the Rising Star Cave, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger and his team found the remains of a small-brained human relative called Homo naledi, carefully placed deep inside a cave system so difficult to access that the journey required crawling through passages less than 20 centimeters wide. These creatures, with brains roughly a third the size of yours, carried their dead into darkness on purpose. They did not abandon them. They did not leave them where they fell. They moved them deliberately to a place that required enormous effort to reach. Think about what that means. Before language as we know it. Before religion as we know it. Before civilization, agriculture, writing, or anything we associate with being fully human, something in the ancestral mind already understood that the dead deserved more than nothing. But why? Anthropologist Barbara King at the College of William and Mary spent years studying grief in non-human animals and reached a conclusion that collapses the distance between us and every creature that has ever lived. Grief, she argues, is not uniquely human. It is not even uniquely primate. Elephants return to the bones of their dead for years, touching them with their trunks in silence. Dolphins have been observed carrying their dead calves for days, refusing to let them sink. Chimpanzees have sat beside the bodies of their companions for hours, grooming them, touching their faces. Something in the biological machinery of social creatures resists the fact of loss. Something insists on staying close. Your ancestors were no different. In fact, they may have been more present with their dead than you are. Archaeological evidence from sites across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East shows a pattern emerging somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago. The dead were not simply buried. They were buried with things. Red ochre, the iron-rich pigment that stains like blood, was painted onto bodies before interment at dozens of sites across the ancient world. Shells and beads were placed beside the dead. Flowers, according to pollen analysis at the Shanidar cave site in Iraq, may have been laid across the bodies of Neanderthals 70,000 years ago. A debate still rages among researchers about whether the flowers were deliberately placed or blown in by wind. But the fact that the debate exists, the fact that the evidence required explaining at all, tells you something about the people left behind. They were doing something for the dead, after the dead could no longer know. Archaeologist April Noel at the University of Victoria argues that this is the most significant thing about early human mortuary behavior. It is not the burial itself. It is the intentionality, the act of doing something for someone who can no longer benefit from it. That is the root of ritual. That is the beginning of meaning-making. And it began not in temples or churches or funeral homes. It began in dark caves and open plains, around bodies that were cooling, in the hands of people who did not have words for what they felt but felt it anyway. What did they feel? The same thing you feel. Neuroscientist Mary Frances O'Connor at the University of Arizona has spent her career studying what grief does to the brain. And what she found is not metaphor. When you lose someone you love, your brain literally searches for them. The same neural circuits that track the location of the people you are attached to continue firing after they are gone. Your brain sends out the signal. It waits for the response. The response does not come, and it sends the signal again. Grief, at the neurological level, is your brain trying to find someone it has not yet accepted is gone. It is a search function running on a system that has not yet updated its map. Your ancestors did not know this, but they acted on it anyway, because the body kept searching. Consider what the ancient rituals actually looked like. not the polished ceremony of modern funerals, which are designed largely around the comfort of the living and the management of the body. The ancient response to death was physical, communal, and prolonged. People sat with the body. They touched it. They washed it. In many cultures documented by anthropologists, the dead were kept among the living for days, sometimes longer. They were spoken to. Food was left for them. This was not superstition. This was the body's natural refusal to accept the fact of permanent absence. In some cultures studied by anthropologist Renato Rosaldo, the expression of grief was almost entirely physical. Wailing, rocking, striking the chest, tearing at hair or clothing. These responses, found across cultures so geographically separated that direct influence is impossible, are not performances. They are biology. The autonomic nervous system under catastrophic loss produces physical pain, real measurable pain, because the social bond was a survival bond. Losing a member of your group in the ancient world was not only an emotional loss. It was a reduction in your chances of surviving the winter. The body grieved accordingly. And yet, in the middle of all that pain, there was something else. Something that the archaeology keeps showing us, again and again, no matter where in the world the site is found. Care. The body was cared for, cleaned, adorned, positioned. Sometimes with the knees drawn up to the chest in the fetal position, as if returning the person to the posture of birth. Sometimes facing east, toward the rising sun, in a gesture that suggests someone was thinking about what comes next. The red ochre painted on the dead at sites across Africa and Europe is almost certainly symbolic of blood, of life, of the thing that had just left the body. Painting the dead red was painting them alive again, or painting them toward something, or painting them so they would not be forgotten. You do the same thing. The flowers at the graveside, the photographs on the funeral program, the clothes chosen for the casket, the stories told around the table afterward, the things you say to someone who cannot hear you anymore. You are doing what homonality did in the dark of Rising Star Cave. You are insisting that the person mattered. You are refusing to let the fact of their death be the last word. There is a term used in paleoanthropology, symbolic behavior, that refers to the capacity to let one thing represent another. A shell can represent beauty. A body painted red can represent life. A flower placed on a grave can represent love. This capacity to reach beyond the literal and make meaning from symbol is considered one of the defining features of what we call modern human cognition. And the first evidence we have of it is not art. It is not language. It is mortuary ritual. The first symbolic act we can document in the human record is something done for the dead. We began to be human by learning how to say goodbye. And that goodbye was never really goodbye. The ancient dead were not released. They were kept close. In memory, in ritual, in the continued address of the living to those who were gone. The Neanderthal who placed flowers, if they placed flowers, was not performing a religious ceremony. They were doing what every grief-struck human brain does when it cannot stop searching. They were reaching toward the person. One more time, in the only language available. So the next time you feel that enormous, wordless thing, the thing that rises in you when you stand beside an empty chair or a box being lowered into the ground, do not be afraid of it. Do not rush it. Do not manage it toward a tidy conclusion. It is 300,000 years old. It is the thing that made us human. And it begins, as it always has, with someone refusing to simply walk away.